Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we are finally going to be talking about the newest album from Pink called Hurts to Be Human. So did anybody really care that this came out? Besides me? I mean, I'm a bigger Pink fan than most, and I could make the argument that I nearly missed it. Just one more project caught up in a tidal wave of releases the past couple weeks in which I'm still trying to catch up. And it seems like everybody already moved on to the new Vampire Weekend. Hell, I moved on. I covered it before this. But here's the thing. Pink did move a lot of units because she does have a diehard fan base and is one of the few pop acts of her era that's still making quality now, right? And I frame that as a question because the 2010s have not been kind to one of my favorite mainstream pop acts of my youth, especially in this decade. And even if I'm inclined to be more forgiving than most, if we compare what she's released since The Truth About Love to what came off of Misunderstood or I'm Not Dead or even Funhouse, let's be real, it's not even in the same ballpark. Now, a big part of this is not Pink's fault. Pop devolving into pale trap imitations instead of the aggressive pop rock where her natural timbre worked, it's something that has wreaked havoc on so many pop acts that I really like. But you know what, I think part of this comes from Pink just not being as provocative in the 2010s as she used to be. Yeah, years in the industry will do that to you, and her diet riot girl approach to gender politics in her music was never that transgressive if you're closer to the punk or indie scene, but she was one of the few mainstream acts who actually got political and in your face about it in the mid-2000s. That's one of the reasons why she stood out. Strip away the muscle and the intensity and the songs just get a lot more bland and forgettable. A great voice can only redeem so much, and that's one of the biggest problems of her work in the 2010s. Now granted, I had no idea where Hurts to Be Human was gonna go, mostly because Walk Me Home sounded exactly like the sort of bombastic but kind of hollow Pink song that we have gotten this decade, but also like the material that Fun was putting out at the beginning of the 2010s, more rooted in indie rock tropes that went nowhere and probably deserved a longer shelf life on the Hot 100. Now, that kind of made sense. One of the co-writers of the song was Nate Ruess, after all, but when I saw the newest list of co-writers that spread across Dan Reynolds of Imagine Dragons, Khalid, Teddy Geiger, Julian Michaels, Ryan Tedder, Sia, Beck, and Chris Stapleton, it gave me no clue where she was going to take this album. But you know what, even if it is just me and the diehard fans who care about this project, I still do. So what do we get from Hurts to Be Human? Well, I'll be blunt. The reason this review is as late as it is because for as much as Pink isn't really giving me much to say, I really wanted to gauge to see if there actually was an audience for quality that this album might have. And given that it's currently topping the album charts, I figured I might as well spotlight the few bright moments we did get here while acknowledging that Pink is rapidly approaching territory in pop that's just not that interesting or engaging. And you know what's very telling at this point is that even the quality we do get is slotting into the sounds and vibes of other acts, with the good songs coming more from Pink's natural talent. Not, any significant experimentation or a desire to make a dynamic, energetic pop album. In other words, there's going to be a ceiling on any greatness we might get here. And you know what, let me make this abundantly clear. As a singer, as a performer, while she's eased back on the visceral rock power, which I still hold as her biggest weakness in the past 10 years, Pink's still a phenomenal singer. She's got the charisma and the vocal control to command a mix as a real superstar. And what I've always appreciated is how much she will throw herself into the work with some real raw intensity, but with enough real subtlety to make some genuine tearjerkers and show some nuance. I still hold her as one of the most dynamic and colorful pop talents still working on vocals alone. So when this album decides to place her beneath layers of autotune on the second song, Hey Why Miss You Sometime, I just get exasperated really fast. But really, it's indicative of the sort of inconsistent production that plagues this album, especially in the vocals. I've been ranting about this for what seems like years now, but at some point, a majority of mainstream pop producers just forgot how to, or just stopped trying to produce for singers with big voices. And it's an issue that is endemic across this project, from either the peaking in the mix on Hustle to the outright messy pickup on the unfortunately monochromatic We Could Have It All. It almost explains why the album is so keen to to double down on the spare ballads because, well, piling up the reverb and isolating the vocal line is one of the few things that mainstream producers still know how to do, like on My Attic. But even then, some of the thinner timbres that would normally get smoothed out on a better produced song, like on Love Me Anyway, they will still cut through. Or you get clumsy peaks on songs like Circle Game, but that with smoother production, this should be inexcusable. Certainly would have been in the 90s or even parts of the 2000s. But this only skirts around the bigger problem, and the one that worried me most from the lead-off singles. If you're looking for a distinctive Pink identity to the compositions or the production style, or even just the writing of some of these songs, it just does not come through, and it frequently becomes blatant who is behind these tracks. I mean, I'm not going to complain that Nate Ruess is co-writing for Pink on Walk Me Home. They've got a history together, and it's one of the more competently produced songs here. But let's not mince words. That's a fun song with different paint because fun's not making music anymore. With the overlayered vocals and the sloppy attempted groove, Hustle sounds like an Evolve era Imagine Dragons cut, Courage sounds like any other Sia song produced by Craig Kirsten, and both 90 Days and Can We Pretend, they're more like tracks you can otherwise get from Wrabel or Cash Cash than Pink herself, which in the case of Cash Cash is a bargain barrel Kygo, and with Wrabel some considerable interpolations from both Imogen Heap and Tracy Chapman. Hell, even the title track wouldn't be out of place on that last Khalid album, and sure enough, he's guesting on it too. And while I'm not against these sort of collaborations in principle, if you go back to the albums that Pink made in the 2000s, or even the very early 2010s, she had a tone and a timbre that was mostly unique to her, and maybe 2 or 3 other producers or co-writers. But like with so many more hands in this process, the songs here, they just feel overmanaged and slapdash, especially as the sole callback to Pink's older sound, We Could Have It All, which sounds like an overmixed mess. And you know what, the albums, they can't maintain a consistent instrumental tone beyond defaulting to heavy, increasingly tedious ballads. And when you're 8 albums into your career and you sold as many albums as she has, and you should have the creative clout to make whatever the hell you want, when I see this many hands in the pie, I question why Pink even wanted to convey this project beyond just filling out a label balance sheet. And again, that's not an indictment of the individual songs. The singles are pretty solid, they're well framed, they're good enough tracks. 90 Days has too much auto-tune, but the hook's got a good pedigree behind it. I like the delirious bounce behind Can We Pretend, and a few of the ballads, they are pretty good, but without that attitude and intensity or raw edge that may have started from her handlers, but that Pink made her own, I just can't see many of these songs lasting or standing out all that much, and that's more the pity. So okay, is it the lyrics that would put this over the top? Well, this is where we encounter a frustrating point for Pink as a pop artist who's been active and a credible songwriter for as long as she has. Even if you have a distinctive writing style, as she does, in blending in the crass with the real vulnerability, by the time you're 8 albums in over the course of 20 years, if you haven't embraced nuance or greater complexity, your material's gonna start sounding the same, or that we've heard it all before. Now, to Pink's credit, there hasn't been a marked drop-off in lyrical quality between projects, and she's not one to chase some blatant trap trends or hip-hop elements, but it's also not like we're seeing a big advancement in quality either, and there are some questionable choices. Even despite the ugly production, I did kind of appreciate how Pink dropped all the brand names across Hey Why Miss You Sometime to highlight how disposable this hookup really is, or maybe that she got a couple paychecks for the shoutouts, which sadly might be more than likely. But where Beautiful Trauma is more centered on self-destructive relationships, Hurts to Be Human is trying to tear deeper into Pink's insecurities and her frustrations with herself. And you know what, I'm not saying that this is bad territory for her, but I'm not sure it reflects the full dimensionality and range of emotion that Pink has shown before and that you'd like to see on a full pop album. Yeah, for the first time, a song from Julia Michaels works in its excavation of childhood pain on My Attic. And I like how Happy is so blunt in its questions whether her self-doubt and the walls that she's put up have prevented her from actually being happy. But by the time we head into the final third and are looking for some sort of growth or stability or a sense that there's been some sort of personal revelation across the album, we get a cut like Circle Game, which is fine, I guess, but where she's fully aware of how she's got to be strong and mature for her own daughter, but is collapsing inwards all the more towards a childlike place. In the acoustic ballad to end off the album, it leaves me feeling that the platitudes about living your truth, they're just not enough to step out of that place and make a really impactful statement. And while songs like 90 Days with its decomposing relationship, or the desperate willful denial of Can We Pretend, they've got some sparkle to them, the vulnerability and angst without any more significant arc or deeper complexity, I gotta be honest, it's kind of underwhelming. If it's supposed to lend her greater strength or clarity, it's just not coming through here. And thus as a whole, look folks, I am still a Pink fan. I think she's a tremendous presence behind the microphone, and she's got better instincts than most when it comes to her songwriting and what can work for her. I've definitely heard worse pop sellouts in this sort of lane. But as I said when I reviewed Beautiful Trauma, that she ceded ground to her handlers in crafting her sound and her narrative, and with Hurts to Be Human, that is all the more apparent. Especially the project is so heavy on the angst and introspection that it neglects the flair and punch that she's had before. Now granted, it could well match her current experiences, and this project might serve as therapy, and honestly I would feel for her there. But you would think that her sound and her production would be the most of hers there, instead of her least. Like, it doesn't really sound like her, it sounds like she's hopping on a bunch of different sounds, and you think if she wants to be intimate, there'd be more of her own. But as such, 6 out of 10, recommended for the fans and the silent majority crowd who will go out and get this anyway. But outside of the singles and a few moments, you're not missing much. And honestly, that's the real disappointment. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. I gotta be honest, I didn't want to make a negative review about Pink, as she is one of my favorite pop artists, but yeah, it's okay, but it's not great. But if you want to buy or stream it, links down there below, and I got the poll up there for y'all to tell me how wrong I am. Although, in this case, for those people who even care about Pink or have been the longtime fans, not sure I am. Beyond that, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And just another friendly reminder, if you're looking for new episodes of Billboard Breakdown, they're in the new channel, links are over here, please go check it out. And hey, I got links to the rest of stuff in the card right over there. But till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.